When I saw the smoke rising above Darfur, I did not see Sudan alone. I saw an entire continent crying through that haze, Africa bleeding once again. In those flames, I recognized the faces of my brothers and sisters, from Accra to Atlanta, from Khartoum to Kingston, bound together by a destiny too long ignored. Sudan's agony is not distant. It is a mirror held before us all. The question it asks is simple. Will we finally stand, or will we let silence bury us once more? When I look at Sudan today, I do not see a far-off conflict. I see Africa wounded and kneeling, torn open by the same hands that once divided our lands, enslaved our ancestors, and muted our voices. Sudan's suffering is not theirs alone, it is ours. If we fail to rise now, history will remember that Africa learned nothing from its pain. Across deserts and borders, millions wander with no home, no food, no hope. And as always, the world counts our dead instead of protecting our living. But I say this clearly to the black world, from Harlem to Port-au-Prince, from Lagos to Kingston, our fate is one. When Sudan collapses, it is not only Khartoum that burns, it is the spirit of an entire continent collapsing under neglect. Africa's test has come. Will we continue to stretch our hands to those who forged our chains? Or will we finally stand as one people, one destiny, one future? The answer begins with us, with every African who refuses to stay a spectator to the suffering of their own. Sudan's fire must awaken the sleeping lion within us all. When I look into the reflection of Sudan, I see more than a nation's tragedy. I see the reflection of every failure that has haunted Africa since the day we surrendered our right to define our own path. Sudan is not an isolated wound. It is the face of a continent weakened by greed, divided by borders, and blinded by dependency. The bullets tearing through Darfur echo an older war, a war for Africa's very soul. For generations, our borders have been nothing more than scars drawn by foreign hands. Those same lines now separate African soldiers who kill one another, while their weapons and funding come from the same powers profiting from our misery. This is the cruel irony of our age, brothers shedding each other's blood to enrich merchants of chaos who dread a united Africa. When I see Sudan's cities turned to ashes, I remember Ouagadougou's own scars, the same manipulation, the same whispers from abroad, the same fear of an Africa that stands tall. This is not coincidence, it is design. Because a divided Africa feeds the world, but a united Africa feeds itself. And those who live off our suffering will never allow unity to come easily. Sudan's tragedy must awaken a truth long buried, that Africa's struggle is one. The hunger in Darfur, the sanctions in Niger, the turmoil in Mali, all come from the same disease, our reliance on outsiders to fix African problems. Until we cure that sickness, there will always be another Sudan, another famine, another brother buried beneath the world's silence. We cannot keep mourning while doing nothing. Every African nation that falls weakens the whole. The mirror of Sudan shows us our truth. Either we unite behind one destiny, or we watch ourselves crumble, border by border. Silence has become Africa's most dangerous weapon turned inward. It is not the absence of words, it is the absence of courage. When I speak of Sudan, I do not speak to the world. I speak to Africans who have learned to look away from their own pain. We raise our voices when cameras appear, then retreat when the headlines fade. That is how our oppressors survived, not by strength, but by our silence. Why do we stay silent? Because we have been conditioned to believe that our suffering is normal, that our salvation must come from outside, from donors, councils, and powers that neither understand our culture nor respect our sovereignty. When bombs fall in Sudan, the first question our people ask is, what will the United Nations do? But the real question is, what will Africa do? Our silence also grows from fear, fear of losing aid, fear of standing alone, fear of being cut off. Yet silence in the face of injustice is not peace. It is complicity. When one African nation bleeds and the rest watch, we all become accomplices in our own humiliation. In Sudan, children die because the world sees no profit in their lives. Yet we, the sons and daughters of Africa, scroll past their suffering as if it were not our own. What happened to our conscience? What happened to our unity? Africa has never lacked brave hearts. It has lacked a collective spine. We have leaders who preach solidarity but sign contracts that enslave their economies. We have citizens who cry for freedom but fear the cost of rebellion. I do not judge them. Decades of manipulation have made silence feel safer than defiance. But silence has never saved a people. It only delays their fall. If we continue to let fear decide our response, Sudan will not be the last African tragedy. It will only be the latest. The time has come to end this paralysis. The time has come for every African, leaders, workers, youth, and diaspora, to rediscover their voice and their duty to one another. When we speak as one, the world listens. When we act as one, no empire can stand against us. But if we remain silent while Sudan burns, our children will inherit not freedom, but shame. From Ouagadougou, I watch the smoke rise over Sudan and feel the weight of history pressing on my chest. What burns there is not just land. It is the idea of an Africa capable of standing on its own. Each bomb in Khartoum, each child who cries in Darfur, reminds me why I chose this path, why I refuse to kneel before those who wish Africa forever on its knees. When I speak to my people, I speak not as a president or a soldier, but as a son of this continent, raised by struggle, guided by truth. I speak because silence is betrayal, and I say this clearly: no foreign nation will save Sudan. No coalition built in distant capitals will rescue Africa from itself. The power to rebuild must rise from within, from our villages, from our youth, from those who refuse to trade dignity for aid. Burkina Faso is not a rich land, but we have chosen to stand tall. We have said no to puppet strings and yes to sovereignty. That choice carries a cost: sanctions, isolation, threats. But it is the price of freedom. And I would rather walk barefoot in the desert of independence than ride in comfort under servitude. Sudan's pain is a warning. It shows what happens when nations are divided, when loyalty to tribe outweighs loyalty to Africa, when leaders serve foreign masters instead of their people. I will not repeat those mistakes. From Ouagadougou, I call on every African leader: set aside ego, ambition, and the fear of Western disapproval. Our people are dying while we debate resolutions. Sudan does not need speeches. It needs solidarity. It needs African convoys carrying food and medicine, not foreign drones dropping bombs. And to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, your roots are calling. The continent does not need pity. It needs participation. You hold influence, knowledge, and access to resources built on Africa's stolen wealth. Use them now. The fire in Sudan should ignite action, not sympathy. If Africa abandons Sudan, Africa abandons itself. Every silence today becomes a wound tomorrow. Africa's salvation will not come from handshakes in Paris or promises in Washington. It will come from the calloused hands of African farmers who refuse to starve, from the youth who build rather than flee, from soldiers who protect rather than oppress, and from mothers who teach their children that dignity is not negotiable. Our renaissance will not arrive through applause from the world. It will begin when Africans no longer seek approval to exist as free people. Sudan's agony has exposed every illusion we once believed: that global institutions care for us, that foreign intervention brings peace, that neutrality protects the weak. No, it has shown that we either defend our sovereignty or we lose it entirely. When I stand before my people, I see not borders, but destiny. I see a continent rich enough to feed the planet yet starving because others own our fields. I see youth who could build empires forced to drown in the sea chasing illusions of Europe. I see a continent that taught civilization, now begging for aid. That is not fate, that is betrayal, and it must end in our lifetime. Africa's enemies are not invincible. They rely on our division, our mistrust, our fear. But once Africa finds its unity, the world will tremble, not from our armies, but from our awakening. Sudan can be that spark. From its ashes, a generation may rise that no longer accepts charity as survival. The truth is simple: No one will liberate Africa except Africans. Not tomorrow, not next century, now. Every delay is paid in blood. Sudan's people are not waiting for our sympathy. They are waiting for our action. For convoys of food, not sanctions. For peacekeepers under an African flag, not foreign mercenaries. For leadership with conscience, not puppets with titles. To the leaders of this continent, I say, history is watching. Our children are watching. They will ask, when Sudan burned, where were you? Did you hide behind diplomacy while our brothers died? Did you count dollars while counting graves? The time for cowardice is over. The time for sovereignty has come. I call on ECOWAS, on the African Union, on every regional bloc that claims to serve our people. Act as Africans first, not as administrators of foreign interests. Suspend the language of dependency. Replace meetings with missions, speeches with supplies, pity with purpose. And to the people of Sudan, you are not forgotten. From the Sahel to the Cape, from the Nile to the Atlantic, millions stand with you. You are fighting not only for your land, but for Africa's dignity. Hold on to that. Even when the world turns away, know that your struggle lights the path for generations to come. I have seen the same storm in Burkina Faso. I have felt the same isolation. When we expelled foreign influence, they called us reckless. When we defended our soil, they called us dangerous. When we stood for sovereignty, they called us radicals. But I learned this truth. It is better to be condemned for defending your people than celebrated for betraying them. Sudan's fire may rage today, but it will not consume the idea of a free Africa. That idea is eternal. It burns in every heart that refuses to bow, in every hand that plants instead of plunders, in every voice that says no to subjugation. Let them call us dreamers. Dreams have always built nations. Africa is not the child of despair. It is the cradle of renewal. From the ruins of Sudan, new alliances will form. Young Africans will remember that freedom is not granted, it is taken. And once taken, it must be protected with every breath. Our ancestors endured chains and still sang of tomorrow. If they could dream of liberty while enslaved, then we, who breathe free air, have no excuse for silence. Their blood built the world. Now it calls us to build Africa. I do not speak these words for applause or politics. I speak because the moment demands it. Every empire that ruled us believed Africa would never awaken. Yet here we stand, awake, aware, and unafraid. To my brothers and sisters scattered across the seas, return, if not in body, then in spirit. Teach your children the truth they will never hear in foreign classrooms, that Africa was the beginning, and it will be the future. The path home begins with remembrance, and remembrance demands responsibility. Sudan's story is not finished. It can end as another tragedy, or begin as the chapter of our rebirth. The choice belongs to us. No savior is coming. We are the saviors we have been waiting for. Let the world witness it. A new Africa rising from the ashes, unbroken, unbought, and unbowed. And when history asks who lit the fire of that awakening, let it be said, it began when Sudan burned, and Africa finally chose to rise.